great holidays and some time off and some relaxation, we're here to celebrate and kick off 2019 for the best company on the planet. Let's get this party started.
For all my life, but I had to start again with just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA. There's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the
My name is Lieutenant Jason Redman, and I've had the distinct honor to have served over 20 years with the U.S. Navy SEAL teams. The majority of people who walk this earth have never wrestled with an enemy combatant in the deep blackness of night. They have never waded through the fog of war or the chaos of combat. The majority of people who walk this earth sleep peacefully in their beds at night because brave men and women are willing to endure the clash of steel and the sting of battle for the nobility of freedom. I, along with thousands of other American warriors, are one of these men. On September 13, 2007, I was the Assault Force Commander for a time-sensitive mission to go after a high-value Al-Qaeda leader. As is common on the battlefield, the thick, stifling fog of war quickly rolled in, and my team and I were caught in a deadly, well-executed ambush. In the ensuing 35-minute firefight, I, along with two other members of my team, were severely wounded. if it wasn't for the multiple danger-close fire missions that were brought in that fateful night by an Air Force AC-130 gunship, I would not be here today to tell this story. Thanks to their precision targeting and my teammates' tenacity and courage, it enabled us to overcome and eliminate all enemy forces. It is a testament to the unshakable resolve of my teammates and the American spirit that will never be conquered. During the firefight, I was hit twice in the arm with 5 more rounds striking my helmet, shooting off one of my night vision tubes, hitting my body armor, and striking my weapon. I was able to keep fighting and directing until another bullet struck me in the face, knocking me out. Caught in the open, while the firefight continued to rage over me, I lay flat on my back, helplessly watching the rounds traveling over me, patiently waiting for my teammates to win the fight and bring in the medevac, while my life slowly drained out of me and my world faded to black. Since that night, I have undergone 37 surgeries. I've had 6 blood transfusions, tracheotomy that I wore for 7 months and 2 days, approximately 1,500 stitches, 200 staples, 5 plates, 1 titanium orbital floor, 15 screws, 8 pins, 20 skin grafts, 3 bone grafts. I've had my jaw shattered, broken, and rebroken 3 times. I had my jaw wired shut for over 12 weeks. I lost over 50 pounds. I've spent approximately 190 hours in surgery under anesthesia. Despite all that I have been through, it made me realize some critical things about life. I realized the mark of any man, woman, or organization is not found in their past, but how they overcome adversity and build their future. Regardless of the overwhelming odds or opposition in your path, you always have the opportunity to overcome. It is your attitude that will determine the outcome. Since that night, I know that I was granted a second chance. And I now speak on behalf of service, sacrifice, and heroism. I speak on behalf of my fallen brothers, America's fallen sons and daughters, our fallen loved ones. They embody the greatness in every man that is rarely acted upon and even less rarely ever seen. You see, at the highest level, every man and woman who has ever made the ultimate sacrifice recognized one simple fact. Freedom is not a right. It must be fostered, nurtured, preserved, and in the darkest times, it must be fought for. These warrior poets recognize that freedom is a gift. They knew it was worth falling for, even while others around them took it for granted. They knew that the fight for freedom provided others with the true hope of opportunity, a glimmer of freedom that shines through the darkest night, a spotlight that burns out of the deepest hell. And it is in those moments, like a radiant sunrise bursting the horizon, you see the greatness in man. And it validates that the sacrifices of my warrior brothers, of America's sons and daughters, that the scars that I and thousands more carry are worth it. They are worth it for my children and your children and our children's children. And despite the pain that comes with war, we recognize it was to preserve the best America has yet to offer. I now strive to show all Americans that it's up to all of us to preserve and nurture the future of our nation, to never forget the sacrifice of all those who have bled and fought and died to make this country what it is. This is the true cost of freedom and the internal vision of America. Ronald Reagan once captured this vision when he said, "America is a city on a hill, a shining beacon to the world." I like to think of that as a flame or a torch on top of that hill. A lighthouse for the entire world to see. Because you see, for 242 years, the torch of American freedom has burned, and it has been seen all around the world. Warriors have carried it with them, crossing the beaches of Normandy, on Iwo Jima, Korea, and in the jungles of Vietnam. It has been held high in Grenada, Panama, Bosnia, and all across the Middle East. When a warrior falls and his flame is extinguished, every American's torch back home burns just a little brighter. Brave men and women continuously are willing to sacrifice themselves to ensure that flame will never go out. Every American citizen in the United States is entrusted with a small part of this flame. Most Americans feed their flame and ensure it burns brightly for all to see, always showing their patriotism, voting, upholding our republic, and looking for ways to support our country through getting an education, working hard, volunteering, pursuing the American dream, or giving to others less fortunate. Other Americans, they take it for granted, squandering their opportunities, and they allow their flames to burn out. Thankfully, there are those of us who wore the uniform, who were entrusted with an oath and presented at the start of our military careers with a part of the flame to keep the torch of American freedom always burning. Over 11 years ago, I lay on the battlefield in a remote land, pouring my blood into the soil. And I looked up and I saw the dark angel standing over me. And he motioned. It was time to go. And for a second, a split second, I thought he was right. But then I realized I wasn't finished. I had kids to raise to be honorable Americans. I had a wife to come home to love and support as she has always supported me. And I had a torch of American freedom to preserve and forever keep burning. So just as my world faded to black, I stood up, I walked 75 yards, and I got on that medevac helicopter, and I came home. And I vowed once again that I would never allow that flame to burn out while I still hold breath. And I hope that everyone in this room today will do exactly the same in recognition of the sacrifice that made America into what it is today. 11 years ago, I brought my torch of American freedom back from Iraq. It continues to burn brightly, fueled by the tinder that feeds the flame of freedom, honor, courage, sacrifice, and service. It burns as an eternal reminder of the hundreds of thousands who have bled and died so that others may live free. Those of you here today who call yourself veterans, who bear the physical and mental scars of sacrifice, can now hold this flame high as a blazing torch for all Americans to never give up on their hopes and dreams, to never forget their gift of freedom, the sacrifice that made us who we are, and the sacrifice that will enable us to become who we will be. And now, we pass this torch onto all our fellow Americans. And we can look them in the eye and ask them, what are you going to do with yours?
Okay, now I would like to more formally introduce our special guest with a video. Please watch.
Jason Redman. He is a retired Navy SEAL who was wounded while deployed in Iraq in 2007. He's also the founder of the Combat Wounded Coalition, a nonprofit dedicated to inspiring combat wounded veterans.
Everybody in life at some point is going to walk into an ambush, some sort of catastrophic event that's going to rock your world and have this impact on your life. The majority of people who walk this earth have never wrestled with an enemy combatant in the deep blackness of night. I was engaging the enemy, and then suddenly my thinking was very cloudy. And I remember in that moment, like reaching up to my face. The face that I had known was gone. All I felt was this hole. In the ensuing 35-minute firefight, I, along with 2 other members of my team, were severely wounded. Since that night, I know that I was granted a second chance. That day became a benchmark for me. It changed everything in my life. And I saw these young kids coming in, and it made me recognize that I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself, because I could lead right from that hospital bed. Regardless of the overwhelming odds or opposition in your path, you always have the opportunity to overcome. And I said, okay, let's drive forward. We can do this. I realized the mark of a man is not found in his past, but how he overcomes adversity and builds his future. Any wall or door or obstacle that you find in your path, you will get through it. It doesn't matter what you go through in life. Adversity is adversity. We all live in our own personal hell when we're going through adversity. In everything you do, once you decide that you're going to be a leader, you should be a leader of your family. You should be a leader in the community. You should be a leader in your business. You should be a leader of yourself. I love this country. I love everything about it. It's up to all of us to preserve and nurture the future of our nation, and to never forget the sacrifice of all those who have fought, bled, and died to make it what it is. And I truly believe it is that I overcome mindset that makes all the difference. And that is what that sign represents, and that unequivocally is how I have managed to keep myself moving forward and finding success.
Please join me in welcoming retired Navy SEAL Jason Redman to the stage.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. I know I speak on behalf of all of our military forces. I know we have some veterans there that all of us served exactly for that speech that I gave, so that all Americans can enjoy the freedom, the liberty, the opportunities they have, what you guys live day in and day out. You know, working here with EAS, making America better. One of the great things about serving in the SEAL teams is we are a joint unit. We work with almost every single branch of the military. I've worked with the Army, of course the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, the National Guard, the Coast Guard, all of them. And I know unequivocally we have one of the greatest militaries on this planet. So I'd like to take a moment to honor all our other veterans. I'd like for you to stand if you were a veteran. And then, hang on one second. And then Brian and I would like to invite all of you up here. If I can have all of you file up to the right side of the stage. You're going to come across the stage, and Brian would like to give you a token of his appreciation for your service, and I'd like to shake your hand and say thank you. So if I could have all our veterans come up here, please. Class 27, class 202. All right, give it up one more time for our veterans. I salute all you guys. That's right, tell them. Tell them. Yeah, tell them. All right. So needless to say, I am incredibly blessed. I am living on a second chance. And it is fascinating to me on this journey that I've been given, this second chance at life, this second chance of making a difference, not only in my life, honoring the sacrifice of fellow veterans, and getting out there and trying to help people be better. And the interesting thing about that journey is it's made me come to appreciate one word. And that word is perspective. You see, perspective is how we see the world. And if you are fortunate enough, like our veterans, fortunate enough to have gotten out and seen parts of the world that are not here within the borders of the United States of America, you see some hard things. I've seen the highest levels of poverty. I've seen some of the most violent and depraved acts, things that just blew my mind. Things that I questioned, how could another human being do this to someone else? So it fascinates me as I walk around in this amazing nation built on three principles: freedom, sacrifice, and opportunity. That there are people that constantly live in a state of negativity. Always. Every thought they have is negative. Oh God, it's another day I have to get up and go to work and do something. Oh God, it's another day I have to do this or do that. And they will throw out a phrase that I hear more than any other that drives me insane. And the phrase that I hear on a regular basis, and I'm willing to bet there's some of you in this room that even have thrown it out today, is, oh my God, what a bad day. You see, the interesting thing about a bad day is the day I described in that speech. It is a day that will forever leave mental, emotional, or physical scars on your body. The interesting thing about a bad day is it comes back to that perspective. You see, when they flew the rotors off that medevac helicopter to get me back to the combat support hospital, all I could think about was getting back to my family. My 8-year-old son, my 5-year-old daughter, and my 3-year-old daughter, and my wife. And I was focused on one thing: stay awake to stay alive, stay awake to stay alive. And they landed that helicopter, they pulled me off, and they wheeled me into the outer room at the combat support hospital. And one of the first things they have to do is they have to remove all our combat equipment. Guns, knives, bombs, bullets, explosives, anything that our military medical professionals do not like in their operating room. I mean, go figure, they don't like explosives in there. Apparently they tell me oxygen and explosives don't mix. So you have usually some young Marines that are there, and it's their job to strip you of all that gear. And I remember laying there trying to stay alive. Everything in me, stay awake to stay alive, stay awake to stay alive. And I could feel them cutting my gear off, pulling it all off. And they wheeled me into the operating room. And I remember thinking, you can let go. You can let go, you can die. Because you see, there was a statistic that I had heard years ago that I held on to. I told all my guys about it too. I said, hey man, if you get shot or if you get wounded, all we got to do is keep you alive. We just got to keep the pulse going. Because if we can get you to the combat support hospital with a pulse, you have a 10% chance of making it home alive. And when I got into that operating room, I thought to myself, okay, I got a pulse, I can die. They probably got a big car battery in the back that they'll pull out, and they'll, jumper cables will clip them to my nipples, and they'll pow, jumpstart me back to life. And I'm good. So as I started to drift off into that darkness, I suddenly heard this commotion going on in the operating room, and I felt this tug on my left side. And I opened my one good eye and I look around, and there was a nurse standing there. You see, I used to carry a grenade right on my belt, and they had missed it. And this young nurse found it. And she yells out to the operating room, he's still got a bomb on him. And if you guys have ever seen the Roadrunner cartoon, where the Roadrunner's standing there and pow, there's a cloud of dust. That's exactly what it looked like in the operating room in that moment. Because you see, they don't like explosives. And they definitely don't like grenades. It's this little baseball-sized orb of death. And I watched as every single doctor, nurse, medic, x-ray tech, everybody that was supposed to be saving my life ran out of the room until I was all alone. And I remember thinking to myself, you have got to be kidding me. I've been shot multiple times. My face has been blown off. I thought my arm had been blown off. Half my team has been shot up. I am dying. And suddenly all the people that were supposed to save me just left. And I thought to myself as I started to drift back into the blackness, oh my God, what a bad day. That's a bad day. That day forever left an impact on my life. I will forever carry the physical, the mental, and the emotional scars from that day. There's still nights I wake up reliving that gunfight. Still times when a loud commotion, a bang, a backfire make me jump. Thankfully, I got a buddy who watches my back. You see, I want to change your perspective on life. I want you to look at the world through a new lens. I want you to understand that every day you wake up is a gift. And there are no more bad days. There are only good days and great days. And we're going to talk about how we can do that. In order to understand that and to get deeper into that, I want to talk to you about ambushes. Because you see, I survived a real-world enemy ambush. But in order to really understand that, you have to understand the mechanics of an ambush. An ambush is designed to place devastating, overwhelming firepower on the enemy you were trying to kill. And we try to pour as much firepower and explosions as possible on those individuals. And I got to tell you, I trained my whole career to ambush other people, and suddenly I found myself on the receiving end, and it wasn't a lot of fun. I know, being in North Carolina, we got a couple of people that know how to use a firearm. I want to let you know it's much better to be on the sending end of a firearm and not on the receiving end. So stay on the sending end. Because you see, that night, standing there in the middle of that gunfire, it was absolutely overwhelming. we had what we estimate to be 16 enemy shooters, 2 machine guns, and we were caught in that crossfire. And the area of impact in the middle of an ambush, where you try and pin somebody down and overwhelm them, is called the X. And as I've walked along this journey, I began to figure out that the mechanics of an enemy ambush are actually the exact same as what I call life ambushes. And a life ambush is an unexpected catastrophic event that you encounter that pins you down onto the X. And I meet so many people that have had events like this. So many people that have had some sort of negative, bad day. And these are real bad days now. Such as they walk into a job and suddenly they're told, I'm sorry, the organization or the company is shutting down and you no longer have a job. You're the primary breadwinner for your family. And now you're thinking to yourself, how do I pay the bills? How do I take care of my kids? And it starts to go up from there. Divorce. Starts sickness. Life-threatening illness or injury. Life-threatening illness or injury from someone in your family. Sexual trauma. The loss of a loved one. One of the highest ones I've seen is the loss of a child. And I don't know what it is about life ambushes that are the same often with an enemy ambush, is people tend to sit on the X. They just sit there. And what's even worse is most people in life, I watch them, we have this natural tendency to turn around and look back at what we lost. And all we think about is, I want back what I no longer have. But you can't, because it's in the past. All you can do is drive forward and shape the future. So interestingly enough, the mechanics of surviving an enemy ambush that enabled me to still be here and stand on this stage are the exact same mechanics you need to survive a life ambush. And it's simple. You have to get off the X. You have to drive forward. You have to start looking at, where am I going to go in order to get out of here and move past this ambush. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. You're going to feel that pain. But only by getting off the X will it enable you to find success. As I thought about my life ambush, because you see, I had the enemy ambush, and then I had the life ambush of being faced with the fact, originally they wanted to amputate my arm. The entire right side of my face was blown off. I had no nose. My jaw was wired shut. And I was faced with the fact that I would no longer be able to be a SEAL operator from my injuries. That was a life ambush. And I wanted to look back at what I had lost. I had laid out this amazing career for myself. But I realized I had to get off the X. I couldn't change the past. I could only shape the future. And then I realized there were all these amazing things that I had learned over my military career. Some of the most amazing leaders I ever had the opportunity to work with. Some of the most amazing warriors that had done these incredibly courageous things on the battlefield. These amazing teams. And I realized as I lay in that bed that I had all the tools I needed to start pushing forward and getting off the X. And I realized they were there. You also have these tools. Because the great thing about it is these aren't Navy SEAL tools. A lot of people I'll come and speak for, they'll say, well, I'm not a Navy SEAL. And I'll say, well, that's good. Because what I'm going to talk to you about, maybe things I learned in the SEAL teams, but they're not Navy SEAL principles. They're human principles. And these human principles are what make individuals, teams, organizations better. And I got to tell you, I've done homework on EAS. I've had a lot of time to spend with Brian. You guys are already starting to move in this direction. You're doing it. But we always can get better. We always can take it a step further. And that is what we're going to talk about today. What I want to talk about are the 5 principles of elite performance. And when I look back on that night that I came home, I realized that these were the 5 key things that made all the difference in us being able to come home. Now, first one, the most fundamental, is teamwork. A disparate group of individuals working towards a common goal. I love your Courage to Care program because right off the bat, it is a combination of individual leadership and recognizing that we're all part of a team to work better, to look out for each other, to look at the end state. And that's exactly what a team is about. So one of the most critical components when we start looking at teamwork is how we build our teams. Some people don't put a lot of time into building their teams, or they only look at my team as my work team. What's absolutely important is to recognize you have circles of teams in every aspect of your life, and you need to build them and invest in them because it's going to help make you stronger and them stronger. So that outermost team is our work relationships. Everybody in this room is part of your outer ring. And the interesting thing, here in America, we have a natural tendency, as we get older, to put more time and effort into our work teams than we do into our inner rings. Because from there, it starts to get tighter. The relationships get a little closer. Our acquaintances and the individuals we call friends, maybe not close enough that we share every piece of information with them, but close enough that, we get to know them, we like to hang out with them. From there, it gets into our closest friends, the individuals we confide in, the individuals we talk about our problems. And that innermost ring is your family. I watch so many people who don't take the time to build their personal teams. And I got to tell you, where this starts to become problematic, if they haven't been investing in their teams, is when they encounter a life ambush and they are not ready for it. You see, it takes your ability to invest on all sides of your teams. That night, on the battlefield in the middle of that firefight, I had built an amazing circle of teams. My teammates that I fought side by side with covered all aspects of that circle. They were my work relationship team, they were acquaintances, they were close friends, and I considered them family. And from there, it went out. The problem, if you don't invest in your teams and you don't build your teams, your inner rings are the most important. And when you have these life ambushes that occur, the outer rings at time will fade away. So my advice to you today is make sure you are investing and building in those innermost teams. Because someday, you're going to stop working. And you want to have that beautiful family. You want to have those friends that carry with you until the end of your days. I can tell you from personal experience, it absolutely matters. So once we have built our teams, now we start to look at the next stage, how we make them better. Now the SEAL teams, we know a thing or two about teamwork. The mere fact that our entire name is built around this concept. And we have a really amazing way of bringing teams together. And when you go through training, you don't really recognize this. You just feel like you're getting beat down and abused. But years later, I've gone back and I've watched young SEAL candidates go through basic underwater demolition SEAL training, or BUDS. When they go through BUDS, there's all these things that they do. And one of those things is we carry around these little rubber boats. These little rubber boats weigh about 250 pounds. You have a 7-man boat crew that carries them. And you take it everywhere you go. And you have to be in coordination as you move it around. There's certain calls to bring it up to a low carry, bring it up to a high carry, bring it up over your head, bring it up onto your head like these guys are behind me. The interesting thing about this, though, is if I transported all of you out to SEAL training right now, and you were to watch a class go through training and they were all running on the beach with these boats on top of their heads, you would hear one thing yelled above all others. You would hear this common cry and shout above all the other chaos. And it would be this: get your head under the boat. You know, when I was going through training, I didn't think a lot about this. But later, when I went back and watched, I realized how critical it is to be a member of a team and to have your head under the boat. And in order to completely understand this, I want you to look closely at that picture. If you look at the gentleman on the far back left, if you notice something, there's a whole lot of atmosphere in between his head and the boat. And you see, for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. And if you look at the gentleman on the far left of the picture, he's in the exact opposite position on that guy on the back. And it causes the weight to redistribute onto that individual in the front. That's why it's so critical to keep your head under the boat. If you were working as a team, if you were working with individuals, if you understand where you're going, you have to carry the weight. All of us have heard that phrase. That night on the battlefield, my teammates stepped up and helped carry my weight when I was sleeping on the job out front in the middle of that firefight. Everyone has to carry the weight. Everyone has to get their head under the boat in order to make a difference. Don't be that guy or gal who's not carrying the weight. The other critical thing they teach you as you're out there going through training is how everybody has to be rowing in the same direction. You see, when you're in that little boat, one of the things they love to do is send you out to row through the surf zone, big waves. And the funny thing when you're going through training, it doesn't matter what's on the schedule for that day. You may have classroom, you may have calisthenics, you may have the obstacle course, but the instructors will go out there and look at the ocean that morning and they'll go, oh yeah, we got 15-foot waves today. Go get your boats. And you will go out there into that surf zone and get smashed by these big waves. And you learn that the only way to get through these big waves is everybody has to be rowing in the same direction, in the same cadence. Any organization and team has to understand this. Every single person has to understand we are rowing at the same time. So for the leaders and the team members, all of us have to be on the same page. You got to get your head under the boat. You got to be rowing in the same direction. It enabled me to come home that night. I think you guys have heard this phrase before. Brian and I specifically talked about this. The SEAL teams, one of the things we recognize is we are better together. How many like that movie Rambo? Sylvester Stallone, Rambo, great movie. It's also not really fact-based. No one individual can survive on the battlefield. Battlefield is a 360-degree environment. There are enemies on the ground. There are enemies up above. Oftentimes there's bombs under the ground. It takes an amazing group of teams to operate and flow through a target and to flow through a target environment to have that 360-degree view on what they're doing. And what one person might miss, someone else immediately picks up on. It's a little bit in your Courage to Care quote. It's critical that we are better together and that we understand this. So you have to help each other. When we go overseas, we have a battlefield turnover. So the team that's coming in pairs up with the team that's getting ready to leave and go home. And the individuals that are going home, they're the experts. They've been there for 4 months or 6 months, and they've learned what's going on the ground. So we partner with them. So you pair up with the guy that was doing your job for the last 6 months, and he walks you through all the little nuances of the job. So we've got to mentor each other. We've got to share information. We've got to learn from each other. It is the foundational component of making teams better. So if you're not sharing your knowledge with somebody, you need to. Find somebody younger than you that you can mentor. Find somebody you can make better. You're going to learn more from it because you're going to start looking at the way you do things. You're going to become more efficient, and they're going to learn from you. And all of that makes that team better. the last part of teamwork starts to flow into leadership. It's a concept called extreme ownership. Now, there's a great book out there by this title called Extreme Ownership, written by a couple of friends of mine, Leif Babin and Jocko Willink. And the concept behind this book is that you own everything related to what you do within the team. It's not the leader's responsibility. It's not any one individual's responsibility. Extreme ownership says that everyone owns everything that happens within that team. And oftentimes, a breakdown in leadership occurs within teams when the leader starts to blame other people for problems within the team. But the idea of extreme ownership says that's not true. I'll give you an example of this. So imagine, if you will, we're back out at SEAL training, and the students are going through that evolution of sending boat crews out into the surf zone. So they have to race out past the waves, and then they turn around and they have to row back. Always pays to be a winner. So the boat crew that comes in first, they get to sit out and rest. The boat crew that comes in last, they get punished with extra push-ups and different exercises and the attention of the instructors. So imagine, if we will, we have boat crew blue led by Ensign Blue, and we have boat crew gold led by Ensign Gold. And a pattern is starting to develop. Boat crew blue is winning every single race, and boat crew gold is losing every single race. So of course, the instructors are starting to take notice of boat crew gold and applying extra motivation. And finally, they pull aside Ensign Gold and they say, Ensign Gold, what is your major malfunction? Why are you losing every single race? Why is your boat crew a mess? And they say, look at boat crew blue. They're winners. Why can't you be a winner? And Ensign Gold's all flustered. He looks over at boat crew blue and he goes, well, if I had boat crew blue, I'd be winning. And the instructors say, well, that's a great point. And they say, Ensign Blue, take over boat crew gold. Ensign Gold, take over boat crew blue. Stand by, go. And they run 3 more races. And what do you think happened? You're right. Ensign Gold was now taking boat crew blue to lose, and Ensign Blue was now leading boat crew gold to win. Why? Because there are no bad teams. They're just bad leaders. 95% of the time, if there is a problem with the team, it is a problem with leadership. It is the leader's responsibility, and make no mistake, every single person within a team is a leader, but it is that senior leader's responsibility to make sure the team has everything they need to be successful, providing the right motivation, providing the right resources, providing the right guidance. 95% of the time, it's the leader. Only 5% of the time is it the actual team members themselves. This is why extreme ownership is critical. Everyone has to be able to take extreme ownership of their team. That night on the battlefield, when I was all shot up, my team leader stepped up and took over the fight. You know, because I was busy sleeping on the job out there unconscious after trying to catch bullets with my teeth. Could you imagine if my team leader had decided he wasn't going to step up and take that extreme ownership? If he had said, yeah, nope, not my job, none of us would be here. So extreme ownership says that the leader will provide the guidance, but it also says that everybody else in the team will step up and lead. This is how you achieve elite performance in any team. Which leads us next into leadership. A lot of people will reach out to me and say, hey Jay, you speak on leadership all the time. How do I become a better leader? I want to be a better leader. I want to lead my team better. And it comes down to this. The very first question I ask any single individual who's looking to be a better leader is, how well do you lead yourself? How well do you place structure into your life? How well do you discipline yourself? How well do you lead by example in everything you do? Because until you can effectively lead yourself, you will never be able to effectively lead teams, especially in crisis situations. When my team leader stepped up and took over, he was a rock star. He had done 3 combat deployments, respected across the SEAL teams. When he stepped up and took over that firefight, the guys took one look and said, "Roger that, let's go." So be that guy or gal. Begin by leading yourself. I have 3 rules of leadership. Rule number 1, you got to lead yourself. This is 80% of the equation. So many people confuse their ability to lead others with barking out orders or telling people where to go and what to do. I confused myself with that. So much so that I almost ended my career when I became a new officer. I'd been grinding along and doing really well in my career. As a young enlisted guy, I got selected for a commission. I was ranked number 1 out of my college graduation class, out of my ROTC. Came back to the SEAL teams thinking I was the man. And thought that I can just tell people what to do, and this is how I'll lead. And I failed miserably. All of that culminated with a bad call on a mission in Afghanistan, which thankfully probably could have ended my career. And instead, my leadership said, "Man, he's got a lot of potential, but we need to humble him and teach him how to lead himself first." So they sent me to this amazing vacation, this summer camp, to learn how to be a better leader. The summer camp's called U.S. Army Ranger School. For those of you who don't know about it, it's pretty amazing. So it's 2 months, and you get these friendly instructors who give you motivation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2 months. They wear these little black hats. And then they give you this backpack full of about 80 pounds of gear that they allow you to carry around everywhere you go. And if you're really lucky, they give you extra radios and equipment, so it weighs about 110 pounds. And you carry this all over God's green earth in Georgia. And they reward you with about 3 hours of sleep a night, a lot of physical activity, and a lot of verbal motivation. And the last winner for this great camp is it's a weight loss program. They feed you about once a day. The average person in Ranger School loses about 50 pounds. But my leadership was super smart because they knew that Ranger School is a leadership school. And it taught me to look inside and recognize, how was I leading myself? How was I setting the example and motivating and inspiring other people? This picture was taken at my Ranger School graduation, and it was the beginning of my first rebirth as an individual and a leader, coming to understand that I placed myself last in the equation, and that everything had to do with how I led myself. It was 80% of how you lead and how you bring teams together. In Ranger School, I learned the greatest piece of leadership advice I've ever been given. I was told, people will follow you if you give them a reason to. That all comes down to leading yourself. Rule number 2, you've got to lead others. It is critical that all of us step up and lead others. Like I told you, if you're effectively leading yourself, leading others just comes naturally. People will follow you. I learned this lesson in such amazing clarity when I got into the hospital. I was in the hospital. I'd only been in there for a couple of days. I'll be honest, I was feeling sorry for myself. The doctors were telling me they were going to amputate my arm. I had no feeling in that arm. I was so weak I couldn't even get out of bed. I had to have nurses help me go to the bathroom from the amount of blood I lost. My face was blown out. I hadn't seen myself in a mirror. I was trached. I had a stomach tube that they were feeding me through. And I was feeling sorry for myself. I was having a little pity party. I was sitting on the X looking back at what I had lost. And the nurse came in and said, "Hey, there's a young Marine that'd like to come in and meet you." And I said, no, I'm not really, no. I couldn't even tell her that. I had to write it. And she said, no, seriously, he wants to come in and meet you. And I said, no. So she kind of went around the room. She had dealt with wounded warriors before. She waited about 5 more minutes, and she was like, "So this Marine's still out there waiting?" I was like, "Fine, send him in." This young kid rolls into my room in a wheelchair. He's missing his leg below the knee. But I noticed something about him immediately. He is like bouncing in this wheelchair as it comes in, you know? Like he's on crack. And he's like, literally, like verbal explosion. Hey, LT, it's so great to meet you. I work with you guys in Fallujah. You guys were amazing. You guys taught us how to kick down doors and blow things up, and you taught us how to shoot better, and you taught us how to take down targets better, and I loved working with you guys. You guys were awesome. And I wasn't in the state of mind really to handle this. I was like, whoa. And I didn't even know what to say to this young kid. So I looked at his missing leg, and I wrote on my piece of paper, since I couldn't talk, hey man, you lost your leg. That sucks. And he read it. He looks at me. He looks at the notebook again. He kind of reads it with this puzzled look on his face, and he goes, lost my leg? He's like, you got shot in the face, and you're still here. That's awesome. And something snapped inside me in that moment. I realized something. I realized you can lead from any situation. This young Marine came into that room looking for motivation. He came into that room expecting me to be a leader. He came into that room expecting me to be positive and have an overcome mindset. And I needed that push to realize it. And it was at that moment I got off the X and I said, I don't care what situation I'm in, I'm going to stay positive and lead others. Your attitude will determine the outcome. And then the last one, you've got to lead always. See, several days later, I had some other people come into the room, and they were feeling sorry for me. They were saying, oh, what a shame. You went to war. You'll never be the same. What a pity. Probably won't be able to function in society. They were like talking to themselves off to the side about me. When they left, I was furious. My wife came back into the room, and I wrote to her, never again. Never again is somebody going to come into my room and feel sorry for me. And I wrote out this sign. I didn't even think about it. It said, attention to all who enter here. If you're coming into this room with sadness or sorrow, don't bother. The wounds I received, I got in a job that I love, doing it for people I love, defending the freedom of a country I deeply love. I'll make a full recovery. What is full? That is the absolute utmost physically I have the ability to recover. And then I'm going to push that about 20% further through sheer mental tenacity. This room you're about to enter is a room of fun, optimism, and intense rapid regrowth. If you are not prepared for that, go elsewhere. And we signed it, the management, because, I don't know, it made sense at the time. And I told my wife, put it on the door, nobody's allowed into my room unless they read this sign. And she was like, really? I was like, yes. And the sign went viral. All these people started taking pictures of it. It made this incredible impact. To this day, I still have individuals who get motivated and inspired by that sign. It now hangs in the Wounded Ward at Bethesda National Medical Center. The wood on the bottom of the sign is worn clean because wounded warriors go by it and touch it as they go to surgery. You see, you never know the opportunity you have to lead and the opportunity you have to make an impact on someone else. That's why it's critical that you got to lead always. You can't pick and choose. Once you choose to be a leader, it's all the time. Even if you're feeling negative, there's no bad days, just good days and great days. And you can make an impact on people around you. So as we get deeper into it, there is a principle I talk about that enables us all to be better. It enables us to be better leaders. It enables us to be better members of a team. It's what enables the SEAL teams to operate at the highest level at all times, and that is change. And nobody likes change. Nobody wants to change because it's easier to do things the same way we've always been doing it. I have a concept called the Pyramid of Change. The Pyramid of Change is built on these foundational principles. At the bottom level, you have no effort. Most people don't live in this level. There are a few people out there who could just they don't care. They don't want to work. They don't want to do anything. They put out no results. They're never a very good member of any team whatsoever. This doesn't really work. At the highest level is where people are going 1,000,000 miles an hour. They are trying to do everything. They are over-promising, they are under-delivering, and they are operating in a zone of pain, and oftentimes this is where mistakes and burnout occur. So this doesn't work either. Next zone is the comfort zone, the status quo. The vast majority of people who walk this earth live in this zone. You tell them where they need to be, what level they need to achieve, and they will, bink, achieve it right at that level. And they'll say, yeah, look at me, I did it. Okay, roger that. But you don't get better operating in that level. The SEAL teams did not become the SEAL teams by that level. Olympic athletes do not become Olympic athletes at that level. And high-performance elite teams and organizations and companies do not get to that level by operating in this zone. You see, where you have to be is in the zone of discomfort. You have to push out of your comfort zone. You have to be willing to change. This is where growth and success occurs. And you don't live in this zone. You see, you operate in both areas. And it's a continuous cycle, a loop, where you push up into your zone of discomfort so that you can get better. If it takes you, hypothetically, 1 hour to build some type of system, then the leadership and the team gets together and says, how do we build it in 59 minutes? Oh, well, we would have to do this and we would have to do that. And we make sure we're having to push just a little harder. We're now stepping up into that zone of discomfort. But guess what? After a while, it becomes your comfort zone. You're now cranking it out in 59 minutes. And then the leadership starts to say, how do we push it just a little further? This is how good leaders evolve. This is how great teams evolve. The leaders that are able to operate at this level start to show themselves in a myriad of ways. One of the ways I like to showcase this is something called the leadership fence. Throughout my military career, I had the honor of serving with some of the most amazing leaders I've ever witnessed. I also had the honor of serving with some really bad leaders, and I'll be the first to admit, at one point, I was one of those bad leaders. And it all became clear one day when I started thinking about this concept of the leadership fence. So the idea was that this chair represents a fence, and the fence represents where you are in your leadership journey. And on top of that fence, imagine there's a platform. Everybody falls on one side of the fence or the other. The fence represents that leadership position. On one side, it represents those you lead. The other side represents those you report to. What's critical within this fence is the ability to constantly looking at leadership. And leadership comes down to one very clear word: communication. See, the thing I talk about with this fence is the ability to talk through it. Good leaders have the ability to stay right up against the fence and not too far away from it. When I was a young leader, I was an E1 when I joined the Navy. I grew up with these guys, knuckle draggers, man. I was out at the bar with them, the sled dogs, and I related to them. But as I moved higher up the leadership spectrum, instead of staying right up against the fence, to be able to communicate to my guys where we were going, make sure I understood from my leadership how we were going to get there, providing that feedback and guidance back, I was too far away from it. There are other individuals who are too far on this side. They may come into the organization later, and they're so focused on making that next rank, that next position, that they will step all over the backs of the people they should be leading to get there. The best leaders I've ever seen are right up against this fence. And the greatest leaders, the 1%ers, they stand on top of this fence. And this is an amazing position. And you guys know who the individuals are within EAS that stand on top of this fence. Because they are the individuals that if I went through this crowd and I said, who's the go-to guy or gal whenever something goes wrong, that both the leadership and anyone in the organization would say, go get Joe. Go get Jill. they'll know what to do because they are respected across the organization by both their leaders and both those they lead. This is where we aspire to be. And the thing is, there's no shortcut to get to this position. It is sustained performance over time. In leadership, credibility is the currency of leadership. Every single decision you ever make impacts your credibility as a leader, whether you're on the job or off the job. Decisions you make with your family, decisions you make with your friends, it all impacts your credibility. So make sure you are investing wisely in yourself as a leader. If you have the ability to go on from there, then we get into what I call multidimensional leadership. This begins to see how we impact people across the organization. At the lower level, it's our ability to impact and motivate and inspire our team. From there, it's our ability to communicate and motivate and inspire our leadership. How many people have had a leader of your team that someone in the organization told you to do something, you're going to make this change, and it was a bad decision. It didn't make sense. And it went against safety, it went against problems, but it was driven for expediency or more money or whatever it was. And your leader lacked the ability to go talk to his leadership about that decision. Multidimensional leadership enables you to do this. That is what a good leader does. Then it's our ability to motivate and inspire our peers, which is probably the hardest leadership you will do. It's where I was failing as a young leader. And then beyond that, it starts to get into how we lead and motivate externally. This is how we move through leadership. All right, number 3, a clearly defined mission, task, or goal. My entire career, I used a compass everywhere I went. We had all this technology, satellites, imagery, computers. Like literally, I went in the battlefield with a tough book computer. And we used it to get where we were going. But for all this technology, it could fail. So we always went back to the basics and we made sure we knew how to use our compass, how to look at that map, how to get where we were going. The compass is no different in how you use it in your life. And I talk to so many people when we talk about goal setting and where they're going. I ask them, where are you going? And if you don't know, you're not going to get there. I'm an incredibly goal-driven individual. Any good team or organization or company that is great or elite is goal-driven. I know EAS is because Brian and I talked about it, but are you? Are you within your team? Because you need to be setting that course. You need to be using that compass. So the first question I hope you'll carry away is, where am I going? Where am I going as an individual that's part of a team? Where am I going as a leader of my family? Where am I going as a member of my church, community? Any of these things, you should be able to say, this is where I'm going. In order to get where you're going and use that compass, there are 2 critical things we have that we need. And it's the same in life as it is in military operations. Number 1 is a clearly defined destination. You have to articulate, this is where I'm going. And number 2, you got to set that course. We have a group of individuals in the military that are called point men. And a point man's job is to get us where we're going. But good leaders and good members of a team and goal setters are point men for their own lives. They understand where they're going. They set those goals and they go after them. Everyone in here needs to be their own point man. And where most people fail is they set a destination and they figure out, well, that's the course I need to take, but then they don't stay on it. When we were on a mission, everywhere I went, I wore a compass. Every so often I was checking it. Are we still on course? Didn't matter what technology I had. It didn't matter what distractions I had. It needs to be the same for you guys. You've got to stay the course. Once you do that, then it gets into how do we lay out those goals. Number 1, they got to be realistic. I meet people all the time that lay out these unrealistic goals. Fitness goals are a big one. I meet people who haven't worked out in years and tell me, I want to lose X amount of weight and, squat 600 pounds. Unrealistic. Set small, realistic goals. Make them achievable. Those little wins will make all the difference. It should be that way within your company and your team. And the SEAL teams, that's what we did. We constantly looked to push just a little further. It made all the difference. They got to be measurable. If you can't measure your goal, it's not a clearly defined destination. And the last one, it's got to be adaptable. The world changes all the time. When you're setting these goals, you're setting that course. One of the big things I like to tell people is beware of false expectations. I'll give you a perfect example of this. So when I went through Hell Week in SEAL training is the 6th week of training. Many out there consider it to be one of the hardest blocks of training in the entire U.S. military. Some say one of the hardest blocks of training in some of our world military units. Hell Week starts on Sunday. You never know when it's going to start. They basically lock in a room or a tent early in the morning, and sometime between that time and anywhere from 6 to 8 hours later, they will do breakout. A bunch of instructors will come in and yell and scream and throw simulated explosives at you and just create utter chaos. And that is the start of Hell Week. And you will go all week long with virtually no sleep. You will be wet, coated in sand. Oftentimes, you will be carrying that boat on top of your head everywhere you go. Oftentimes, it's not uncommon for everybody to go bald during Hell Week because the sand just grates the hair off your head. Brian, I see that you made it through Hell Week. Congratulations. When I got ready, Hell Week has an 80% attrition rate. During that week, it's on average 80% of the class will quit. And when I got ready to start Hell Week, I had a friend tell me, hey, Red, if you make it to sunrise on Wednesday morning, it gets easier. I was like, all right, sunrise on Wednesday morning. And that became my goal. I locked my sights on that. And every evolution we did, I kept telling myself, Wednesday morning, just got to make it to Wednesday morning. So Sunday night went by, Monday night, Tuesday night, and when Wednesday morning came along and the sun broke the horizon, it was like angels were singing hallelujah. Oh! And I looked at my buddies in my boat crew. I'm like slapping them. Hey man, it's downhill from here. It's going to get easier now. My buddy told me. Except it didn't. Thursday night was my hardest night of Hell Week. Temperature in San Diego dropped down to about 48 degrees. It was raining. And my boat crew, which you may not have noticed, I'm vertically challenged. Yeah, the shortest boat crew in SEAL training is called the Smurf crew. The Smurf crew was losing every single race, and we were being punished for it. And at one point during this punishment, I was standing there, and I'm thinking to myself, make it to Wednesday morning, it'll be easy. And I thought, I'm going to quit. This sucks. I had created a false expectation in my mind. It is critical that when you set your goals, you understand that it may not always turn out the way you think it's going to. So set those goals, make sure you're staying on course, and drive to that destination. My end state wasn't Wednesday morning. My end state was completing Hell Week and then completing SEAL training. Once I locked my sights back on where that destination was and staying on course, made all the difference in the world. All right. We've talked about teamwork, we've talked about leadership, we've talked about setting a course and a clearly defined destination. So, what makes the difference? What makes the difference for any organization between those who are elite and those who are just good? A relentless overcome mindset. The ability to push through any adversity that comes along is what makes the difference. I talk about 2 key rules with the overcome mindset. Rule number 1, I was taught many years ago. I was getting ready to go to SEAL training, and I was stationed in Virginia Beach at my A school. And I remember walking through the cafeteria waiting for lunch that day, and I look over, and there's a SEAL in uniform eating his lunch. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is awesome. I get an opportunity to ask this guy about buds, about SEAL training. So I said, hey, Petty Officer so-and-so, I'm Seaman Recruit Redman. Hey, I'm going to be going to buds in a few months. Can you give me some advice? What's the secret to make it through? And the guy looks at me with utter disdain, and he goes, don't quit, beat it. And I thought, don't quit, that's so stupid. Of course I know not to quit. That's the dumbest advice I've been given yet. I want to know the tools. I want to know what I need to do to make it through training. But you see, in SEAL training and in life, the biggest thing about the overcome mindset is that, don't quit. Life is hard. It does not go according to plan. The projects we work with constantly have issues and obstacles that develop. And the difference between people who are successful and those who are not are those who continue to grind forward and figure out how to get to the other side. See, one of the amazing things about not quitting is this. There are all these external factors that play into whether you will succeed or whether you will fail. And we can try and shape or predict or do research to figure out what those external factors are. Oftentimes we do a great job at it. Sometimes we miss something. But we cannot control those things. So you may still fail, but that's okay. You did everything right. You pick yourself back up and you drive forward. The problem if you quit, it guarantees failure. This is what makes the difference. That's why you got to have that relentless overcome mindset. That night, when I lay there bleeding out, I wanted to quit. Everything was telling me, you're not going to be able to make it. And I just stuck to that mantra, stay awake to stay alive, stay awake to stay alive. Everybody has the overcome mindset in them. You don't have to be a Navy SEAL. It's a human thing. It is just a commitment that I'm going to continue to grind forward. Rule number 2, you don't mentally quit. So many people I meet, they may be still doing something, but they've already checked out. All of us have seen this watching sports. You watch a team that's getting their butt kicked, and they're just being totally blown out, and you start to see individuals that are no longer running at full speed. You start to see individuals who aren't putting out to their fullest potential because they've already quit. They mentally quit. They might not have physically quit. They're still on the field. But people do this in life all the time. They're frustrated. They're upset by the adversity they're facing, and they mentally quit. We have a team of individuals in the military called breachers. Law enforcement has them too. It is a breacher's job to get inside a target. Whether they go through a wall, a door, a window, they have all kinds of tools they utilize to do this. Manual tools, mechanical tools, explosives. But I tell you what makes all the difference is the mindset. They don't mentally quit. And the mindset we teach them from day one of breacher school is, I don't care what obstacle you come up against, whether you go over it, whether you dig under it, whether you have to go miles around it, or you destructively go right through it, you will get to the other side. There is no obstacle, door, window, wall that you cannot get through. You will figure out a way to the other side. So much so that any adversity they come up against doesn't become adversity. It merely becomes opportunity. That is the overcome mindset. If you build it within yourself, I guarantee it will take your team and yourself to the next level. All right, the last one. You got to adapt to the unexpected. Life is not going to go according to plan. And the greatest thing is you can have the absolute most perfect plan possible. And sometimes it will just fail. It will train wreck, catastrophically fail. And this is where we end up back on the X. Because it's in those major catastrophic failures that we have a natural tendency to look back, and we also have a natural tendency to point and blame. Oh, we failed because, you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, or you didn't do this. None of that matters. In those moments, you have to immediately react. When you have one of these life ambushes, you have to immediately adapt. You have to get off the X. Movement is life. Because I'm going to let you in on a little secret. This is the secret to life. Are you guys ready? Secret to life is pretty amazing. I'm going to blow your mind. I've had people swoon when I tell them this. Life is not fair. You're welcome. Life is not fair. It is amazing. You know, it's like, man, my parents told me that. Yeah, your parents are right. You can do it all right. And sometimes it will go so wrong, you're like, how did this even happen? That's not fair. You're right, it's not. So what? Get off the X and move forward. I'll give you a great example of this. SEAL training does an amazing job of teaching this. And they do it through this very sadistic, evil, torturous little evolution called the room inspection. And during the room inspection, they tell you exactly how your room has to be cleaned. I mean, there's a whole list of things you have to do. How your bed has to be made, how your clothes have to be ironed and in your closet, how your knife has to be sharpened and the tip of the blade must be pointing at the ocean regardless of where you are in the building. How the floor has to be polished to a mirror shine, and there better not be a single speck of sand on that floor. And you are coated in sand 24 hours a day, so it's damn near impossible, but you do it. Once a week, you get ready for this room inspection. And when it's time for that room inspection, you and your 3 roommates are standing at attention in your room. And you listen as it begins because you hear the ball of fire of destroyed souls and crushed dreams of the instructors as they go room to room through that building. And finally, they come into your room, your heart's pounding in your chest, and they look around your room and they say, "This is the best room I've ever seen." Senior chief, have you ever seen a room this clean? And the senior chief said, "Only in my class, the last hard class." He says, "But this is an amazing room. I think we should get every single student in here to see what perfection looks like so they know what their room needs to look at." And you think to yourself, we made it. We did it. We pulled it off. And all of a sudden, the senior chief walks up to the senior man in the room and he goes, "I just noticed something, gentlemen. You know what's wrong with this room?" And he reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a handful of sand and he drops it on the floor. And he flicks some into the face of the senior man and he goes, "Yep, there's sand on the floor. Fail. Go grab your uniforms, grab your sheets, take your boat crew down to the surf zone, get wet and sandy, roll in the sand until you're covered head to toe in something we affectionately call a sugar cookie, and then be back in this room, and we're going to do exercises till somebody quits." Is that fair? No, it's actually really, really cruel. I still see a counselor once a week because of it. But they are teaching you a fundamental lesson. And the people who can appreciate this lesson are the ones that go on and succeed. And that lesson is this: life's not fair. Sometimes it doesn't go according to plan. And the people who reach elite performance are the ones who get off the X the fastest. So get off the X. I'm going to close with one last principle. I'm living on a second chance. Every day I wake up, I thank God that He gave me another chance to be here to watch my kids grow up. And I realize that every day is an opportunity to live greatly. Every day is an opportunity to make a difference in your life and the lives of the people around you. But I meet so many people that squander it, that waste it. I meet people all the time that come up to me and say, "Hey Jay, I wanted to do this," or "I was thinking about doing this," or "I was thinking about taking this next leadership position." And I'm like, okay, well, what's stopping you? And they give me a litany of excuses. And I realize after I think about their excuses and I look back on my own life and when I was laying there dying and the things that I hadn't done, I realized there was one common theme in both my own life and every single excuse that they brought up to me. And that was fear. They were afraid. They were afraid of failure. They were afraid of change. They were afraid of the unknown. They were afraid of what their family and friends may say. They were listening to that stupid little demon that lives inside of us that tells us, you're not good enough, you're not fast enough, you're the wrong race, gender, creed, color, religion, you don't have enough money. They listen to it. You see, living greatly is a lot like jumping out of perfectly good airplanes, which is a hobby of mine. You see, when you get ready to jump out of a perfectly good airplane, your heart's pounding in your chest, and you're thinking to yourself, what the hell am I doing? And life is so much like this. We get up to these decisions that we want to do, that we want to live greatly, but all that fear boils up inside of us. And so many people in that moment get back inside the aircraft and sit down, and they ride that plane to the ground, and they watch their hopes and dreams fly away. You see, you got to get in that door. You got to jump. You got to get out. Get out of that door. Take that leap. Because you see, once you do, whether you succeed or fail doesn't matter. Because it will make you better. It will make you stronger. And more than anything, you will be living greatly. You will look back on your life and you will say, I did it. I went after it. I left nothing on the table. Squash that fear, because the only thing that's stopping you from stepping out that door, from going after your hopes and dreams, from living greatly, is you. All right. I hope you'll take these lessons and drive forward. More than anything, build that overcome mindset. The overcome mindset is the single greatest thing that's helped me to stay alive, to stay focused, to get past failure, to still be here. You're going to have adversity hit you. When it does, get off the X. I want you guys to work as a team, get your head under the boat, row in the same direction. We need more leadership. Set that course and stay the course. And I guarantee you, if you guys implement this into your own lives, into EAS, more than anything, you'll be able to adapt to the unexpected, and you'll have no more bad days. All right, if you like what I'm putting out, check me out. I've got Overcome Products, Get Off the X products. My Trident book, The Forging and Reforging of a Navy SEAL Leader, is a great book. It was selected by the Navy for leadership. I have a podcast for those of you who like podcasts. We talk about motivation and leadership with another fellow SEAL. It's a great show. And you can find all of that at jasonredman.com. I got one last thing I'd like to ask everyone. I am constantly trying to be better, just like I'm encouraging you. So if you text I overcome, all lowercase, to 31996, it'll send you a quick survey. You guys would do me a favor and tell me what you thought of my presentation, how I can make it better. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm Jason Redman, a very, very blessed man who has been forged and reforged by the fires of adversity. 2019 is going to be the year that EAS gets off the X and overcomes. I want to thank you for having me. Get out there and lead always and overcome all.
I learned a lot from this morning. I certainly hope you do. Listen, as we start 2019, I just want to talk through a couple of takeaways that I just got from this morning's event. Let's do our best and give our competition the bad days. We plan to stay off the X because we're always going to get better all the time. That's what we do at EAS, right? You're proving that we're better together by working together as a team, and there's a lot of momentum in that area. There's a lot of business that we've sold that has impacted all of our businesses, and that's because we're working together as a team. I need your promise that you'll make a positive impact on somebody this year. Will you make me that promise? And you'll find yourself in the discomfort zone from time to time with me, but that's because we always want to get better. And be the very best that we can be. We talk about it not on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but we have to be the best every single day. And always have the courage to care. I want to thank you for a great 2018. I'm here to tell you we're going to have a great 2019 as well. I also want to thank our color guard, particularly Dustin McCormick and Jim Bergio for setting that up. Guys, you did a great job. Thank you for being here today. I want to thank John Watson for helping this happen. And there's a number of people here at EAS that made this happen. This is spectacular, isn't it? So I want to thank Alan and Brad and the IT team, Rob Holt, Robert, and John. I want to thank Wesley and David Moorfield. I want to thank Renee, Jared, and Robert. A lot of people put this together today with a lot of work and a little direction. Alan and I talked for about 10 minutes about what we wanted, and this is what happened. So I thank every one of you that had a part in making this happen today. Brad, where's Brad? Can you come up? When Brad's going to come up and say grace, and then we'll break for lunch. Ladies first for lunch. Okay? Brad?
Can we do something a little different? Let's just everyone stand. Let's start with a prayer of thankfulness. God, we love you so much, and we are so thankful for the provisions that you give each of us. Lord, I pray that you would help everyone see the blessings in their life and the provisions that you give them, God. Lord, thank you for a great organization that cares so much about us as the employee and our future and works hard every day to not only sell the job, design the job, engineer it, but build it and send it out the door. Thank you for our work family. It's very unique, but it's a true blessing. Thank you for all the men and women who served, God, who give us the opportunity for the freedoms that we have. Lord, now we want to thank you for the food. We ask that you would bless this food and let it bring health and nourishment to our body to keep us healthy and strong. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks, everybody. Let's enjoy lunch. Ladies first. Let's have a fantastic 2019. Thanks, everybody. You tell them.